Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Jamie Dawn. I am your professional psychic advisor, success coach, evolutionary, revolutionary astrologer, and I am bringing you this video on Mercury being direct now. Oh my God, on July 12th, 2020. I know that many of us are celebrating this. I know also Mercury does retrograde 3 times a year, and we sort of brace ourselves. I could just see everybody holding their breath for the last couple of weeks where it's like, oh my God, when is Mercury going direct again? It's direct, but it's still in shadow. So we may still have a little bit of remnants of Mercury being in its little trickster mode. When it's retrograde, it has a tendency to feel, and we think, because Mercury rules the mind, we think that things are not what they appear to be, which is true. We can also have our own mind play tricks on us. I don't know how many of you, but like myself, will read a text or an email or have a conversation, and that at first blush, it's like, oh, is that really what they're saying? Is that really what they mean? Or is that, I'm not quite understanding what they're asking for. And then you go back and you reread it and you go, oh, that's not at all what I first thought it was. And so these last couple of weeks, there's probably been a lot of redos and revisits, and also because we've had some eclipses during the Mercury retrograde, there's quite a few of you who are reporting that you're letting go and releasing, because we had a full moon eclipse in Capricorn last weekend on the 5th, and we're letting go of some of that fear and insecurities and maybe some things that were concrete or structured that just don't serve us anymore. And that's not always easy. So this last week may have had a little bit of a grieving process. I've had some reports where we're being faced with some fears, we're being faced with some doubts, we're being faced with some uncertainties, which is very appropriate during this time of COVID, because a lot of us who love to plan, myself included, it's very hard to make any form of concrete plans, and that is appropriate. So this week holds some hope, some positivity, and yet some dynamic energy as well. And I use the word dynamic because we have some squares that are going to be going on in oppositions. And so those squares and oppositions, like with the sun opposing Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter, as well as the moon right now in Aries is a square, we're probably feeling this kind of get up and go stuff. And with Mercury now direct, I have a feeling many of us are like, all right, it's time to get moving. I got goals to make. I got things to do. I'm ready, I'm feeling that kind of like, it's time. It's time. Saturn rules time. And we have all these planets in Capricorn. So Capricorn has the essence of time with it, time to climb that mountain and go deep into the ocean, whichever archetype you want to work with. And so, and with Mars now in its home sign of Aries, which, as I've mentioned before, will stay until January. Right now it's going direct until September 9th when it moves retrograde, and we'll talk about that when it gets closer. But right now, Mars is driving us to get things done. It's no more waiting around, right? And we have all this cardinal energy with Cancer and Capricorn and Aries going on. So we're trying to initiate, we're trying to get things moving. And there's many points to make for this week. So something else that we may be looking at, not only with Mercury now being direct, but we're going to have the moon and Uranus canoodling. And there's no major aspects to the moon and Uranus when it's canoodling this week. However, when you've got a moon-Uranus conjunction, there can be electrical kind of aha moments that trigger a fear or an insecurity. The moon is where we nurture ourselves, where we feel most secure. It can also suddenly activate this, like, I know what I need. And it's time for me to tell people what I need, because Mercury is now direct and it's in Cancer. So it's all about what we need and how we feel emotionally and what we need for security, So we could have these sudden moments that arise with the moon, Uranus, and Taurus that can help to create some stability if we've been feeling destabilized, or we've been working in our innermost cave, as I talked about in my blog and on my video last week, is that we may have had to face some fears or some doubts that it's like, no, I have the strength inside of me. Mars in Aries, especially because Mars is canoodling with Chiron, our wounded healer planet. This is where we're going to be asked to share our gifts. We're going to turn our what we thought was a weapon into a tool to be able to offer it as great service to others. So we have been wrestling around in this innermost cave, and that's all that cardinal energy this week. And now we're going to take on the task. We're going to face the greatest fear, which is ourselves. The greatest enemy, as they say, which is ourselves. Because we can sabotage ourselves. We can believe that everything we see outside of us is real and that it's out to get us. And that then it creates a destabilization inside of ourselves, and we go into the worries and the doubts and the I can't do this and I'm not enough and la 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 la. So with Mars in Aries canoodling with Chiron in Aries, what make it activated for us is we're ready to express ourselves as individuals, and we're saying, this is my take on what's happening in the world, what's happening for myself, what I need, all that sort of thing. And we may be faced with rejection. We may be faced with people going, yeah, you're full of shit. And you know what? That may be true. And yet it's your own individual expression. And so we're being asked to own it. You know, so, and I so appreciate your comments, likes, shares with this channel and my videos. And yet these are my opinions. These are my understandings and my continual learning of energy and astrology and psychic work and coaching and all these things that I love so much, and my belief systems. And you know what? They're mine. You don't have to own them. All I'm offering is information that you get to check in with yourself, and I'll keep coming back to that. This is all about trusting your own inner guidance system. No matter what is on the exterior, no matter what the world is preaching to you, what is true for you? Your body doesn't lie. It knows. So this is another piece. Mercury is going to be squaring off with the moon right now, with it being in Cancer and the moon in Aries. And so we may be feeling this internal conflict going on between what we need to say, the throat, and what we feel in the belly, the gut, right? And when our sense of safety, our sense of truth, our sense of connection, which is the belly, is not stabilized and is not secure, then what we speak, what comes out of our mouths, is not necessarily our truth. So what we're working with is checking in, creating that interior state, and really checking in with what do we believe as truth for us? And then how do we communicate it in a way that could be nurturing, Cancer, a way that could be creating some sense of emotional stability and security, more Cancer. Also creating healthy boundaries, because later in this week, we're going to have an exact trine between Neptune and the Sun, Neptune and Pisces and the Sun in Cancer. And when this happens, and we're already probably feeling it, is we're wanting to create this formless, boundless access to the creative, access to the possibilities of Neptune that comes in and activates this individual expression, this identity within us to say, yeah, you know what? I can own, and this is where Capricorn serves us, the extreme ownership. That's what leadership is about. It's about extreme ownership of, yeah, this is who I am. And it's not about apologizing or changing who you are unless it's something you need to do. It's about saying, I'm over here shining my light, doing my thing, and I welcome resonance of this. I welcome opposition so that we can continue to grow and learn, because the Sun is going to be standing across the sky in opposition of Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn, all in Capricorn this week, which, think about this, we're here to create wholeness for ourselves. We're here to bring in what we believe is a fragmented idea of our life into wholeness, into integration. That's why I continue to say, let's turn our weapons into tools. How can we do that? And that's creating wholeness. This is not about negating or pushing something away. I can't tell you how many times over the last year in particular, I've been working with reclaiming the orphan children inside of myself that I would push away and go, well, that's bad. Shame on you for doing that. Oh, you know, yeah, you probably do that and people don't like it. And instead of pushing that away, owning it, loving that part, learning from it, and trying to do it differently in the future. That's what we're working with this week. It's about reevaluating, and we've probably spent a lot of time with Mercury in retrograde doing that very thing, reevaluating where we belong, what our sense of home and family is. And here's the best thing that I can say is that our ownership and our belonging starts with belonging to ourselves. Knowing that we belong inside of this body, we chose this, our soul, our spirit chose to come into this form to manifest it. And regardless of whether you think it's flawed or perfect or could be better or whatever, there's always something about our physical bodies that we're looking to change. And regardless of that, we chose this. So we're being asked, especially in 2020, what do we have control over? We can't control the outside world, but we can command what we do with our bodies, with our minds, with our emotions. Okay? And so this week also will give us a great opportunity to be able to reshape the way we were thinking maybe about ourselves or another or a situation, and that now we may assert ourselves. We may actually have those conversations that we weren't ready to have, even though some of us did, over the last couple of weeks. We're going to be asked this week, as we went into our innermost cave at the beginning of the month, and we're continuing, what's that fear that you're not willing to face? Because this week it could really be activated. Eclipses aren't always activated or felt or taken action upon on the exact day. They have a wide arc of a month before and a month after very often. Something else I want to point out, just to kind of put pins on the map, is that April 23rd, we had a new moon in Taurus, and it was conjunct the sun and Uranus. And we're having another conjunction, not with the sun, because it'll be sextiling with the sun, but we have the moon and Uranus conjuncting each other. And so there is going to be an activation point again, but in a slightly different way. But it does, think back to April 23rd, when this whole COVID thing really started to destabilize our economy and destabilize ourselves and put us into a state of, oh no, what does this mean for us? We may feel a little bit of that now, because the big report that I get from so many is we're exhausted from the routine. We're exhausted from I have no idea what's going to happen, because new information keeps flowing in about this pandemic. And are we wearing masks? Are we not wearing masks? Does it help? What kind helps? What doesn't? You know, I won't get into that in this video again, but what I will say is we're coming back to a time that we get to revisit and say, what is true now? Who am I now? I'm not the same person I was even yesterday. How do I show up to this present moment right here, right now? And then move forward. Because we're going to be faced with this, like I say, this dynamic tension, this need to speak to what it is that works for us and what we need in order to feel that we're our best versions of ourselves. So this week, when you are interacting with each other, try and come back, and it feels really tense, check back in with yourself first. Maybe pull back a little bit and say, you know what, I need to take a step back and revisit some things inside of me first, because I don't want to harm. Mercury in Cancer, especially when it's opposing Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn, it is, and it's not a close enough orb yet for that to happen this week, but we're going to start to feel it, as Mercury is a fast-moving planet. And so we may be feeling this urge or these conversations coming up that can be very transformative. So, and in that process of transformation, we have to be careful that we don't create change for the sake of creating change, but that we listen deeply to what's rising up inside of us and what's rising up in this energy container or field between us and the other person or party. And then from that place of deep listening, checking in with ourselves and really saying, well, this is what I'm feeling inside of me. This is what my truth is telling me. And then again, I'll keep saying this, but if you can't agree, at least be kind. You know, we're not going to agree with everybody all the time, and that's okay. That's what makes this world go around. Thank God for color. I don't want to live in a black and white world. I like living in the world of color. So all of that to say, we've got some really powerful energies that are continuing to invite us to embrace the change that we don't always have control over, but what we do have command over is our own choices and our own life. And so how we respond is what's most important. This is also where practices come into place. And I've talked about this before, but the discipline, the commitment to taking ourselves, don't take ourselves seriously. Keep laughing, keep going, oh, there I go again. But take your practice seriously. Sit down and do the practices and just notice. Notice what happens before you step into the practice, what happens during, and what you feel and sense afterwards. And the practice can be as simple as taking a breath. It could be 3 breaths, or you can sit down and you can try and meditate for hours, whatever works. It can be walking in nature. It can be writing. The practice, I will tell you, one of the greatest practices for manifestation is to have a conversation, and a difficult one that you are a little nervous about. You're not sure how this could show up, but giving yourself permission to really speak from a place of inside of yourself, of truth. And notice that alone can be a practice, you know? So we're always being invited to wake up. We're always being invited to do things, to make a choice, to do things differently. So how we choose, I believe, is the place of freedom. I wish you guys great freedom and self-expression this week, and that there's a continual invitation to play. Life is the greatest laboratory. It's a grand experiment. Instead of asking yourself, is this decision right or is this decision wrong? Maybe ask yourself, what experience do I want to have? Do I want this experience? And if I do, what steps are needed for me to take that action and to go through that? Another piece, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you at the moment, but it just feels like there's really rich, blame it on Mercury now being direct, but it feels like there's really rich pieces here this week for us to work with. And that is not only asking ourselves, what experience do I want to have and what actions do I want to take towards it, but also temporary pain for long-term gain. We as human beings are so afraid of pain. We go into this place of going, I don't want to feel pain, especially in the new age of spiritual community. It's like, well, if there's pain, if there's bad things happening, then I must be a bad person and I'm not spiritual enough. Time out. That has nothing to do with your level of spirituality. It has nothing to do with you being a good or a bad human being. What I believe, and I know I'm sounding authoritarian, blame my Mercury conjunct Saturn here, I believe that we work with pain as a human experience as a tool for awakening, as a tool for showing us what our boundaries are, what our edges are. And what I offer is that we use this tool, it's not a weapon, this tool called pain, to bump up against an edge and say, can I push it just a little bit further? What do I notice about myself when I push past that edge? I'll equate it to going to the gym. This is part of my personal training, bodybuilding background that I have. When you go to the gym and you work out, usually the day after you're a little sore. The second day after, especially if you hadn't worked out in a while, you're majorly sore and it sucks. And you think, I can't even brush my hair. I can't even lift my hands. You know, I say this from personal experience. So all that to say, you have this temporary pain because if you push through that soreness and you keep going to work out and you keep pushing yourself just slightly, not to the point where you're harming yourself, but what happens is your body starts to reshape, you start to build strength, you start to feel better in your body. If your goal is to lose some weight or inches or whatever, that starts to happen. Temporary pain for long-term gain. So guys, we're going to feel it. We could feel it monetarily. If those of you who are struggling, you know, financially, it's like, I have to work in a budget. Temporary pain, work in the budget. These are tough times. Say no. Okay, so you don't get the luxury. I'm not talking about those who are suffering from not having food. That's a different subject. That's where those of us who have need to give. With great power comes great responsibility. And with great resources comes great service. Calling. It's a calling. So temporary pain, long-term gain, right? Keep that in mind as your mantra this week, that even when you're doing your self-expression and you're saying, this is who I am, this is how I do things, this is what I like, you may have that temporary pain of somebody going, what are you talking about, crazy person? Or I don't like what you said. You've hurt my feelings and I don't want to be your friend anymore. Temporary pain. How do you walk through that? Somebody rejects you. Hey, I'd like to create an invitation to talk about this. Is the friendship, is the relationship more important than the subject matter? That's a whole nother ball game, a whole nother ball of wax that we can get into. So I just offer these little tidbits for this week. Depends on the map. Pay attention to them. Come back, listen to this video, because I have a feeling that when you connect with me at jamiedawn.com, that you will also point to some of this going, I'm having a pain point. Great. Let's talk about it. Let's work with it. This is your spiritual dojo. Temporary pain, long-term gain. All right. One other piece I want to leave you, that starting in August, I hope that you guys will check out HAG. Yes, that's HAG, H-A-G, TV. It will be released on Roku. My dear friend Tisha Michelle this is her platform. This is her labor of love that I am fully supporting, and I'm going to add some content to that production and platform, and I'm super excited about that. And she's already got some good content that she's going to put in, and she's got some other great people that are going to be joining. So you will find some of these videos on there, but I'm also going to do some exclusive videos just for that channel. So be on the lookout. Come August, there'll be some information coming. And of course, like, share, comment. Come find me, jamiedawn.com. When to listen. I look forward to connecting with you ongoing. I'm here, you guys. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.